At the beginning of this school year, I watched a bunch of these videos about not taking notes, and I went, I should try that, why not? Well, I did try it, and here's why not. It backfired horribly. Of course, I had other reasons apart from these videos to stop. While I was listening to the teacher, I couldn't take notes, and as soon as I started taking notes about what the teacher was saying, I would lose track of what the teacher was saying in that moment. So when I stopped taking notes and tried to listen to the teacher, I would be completely lost. And then B is that on top of notes, you have books, PowerPoint slides, YouTube videos, your classmates' notes, etc. And there's like so much information out there that you can rely on. So I thought, okay, maybe notes aren't as essential. And the last and maybe most important reason is that when you're making notes, you're not making anything new. You're kind of just remixing things from like a bunch of sources. So the teacher, the slides, and maybe the book. And I thought, well, if I'm doing that, I might as well just read from the slides and listen to the teacher and read the book. There's no reason for me to do all those three things anyway and also write it down. Also, I was really happy with how I was taking notes, which I covered in this video, but it wasn't working for every subject, and so I kind of very simplistically decided that if it's not working for every subject, it's not the best way and I should just completely discard it, and so I did, instead of kind of adapting. So yeah, I completely stopped taking notes for every single one of my subjects, irregardless of what it was or what the focus was. And that was, I now recognize, a very stupid choice. Now you might be thinking, okay, but if you're not taking notes, then how are you studying? Or are you even studying? And first of all, that is a bit of a misconception where you need to take notes to study. And if you have that misconception, then be warned, because you can still, you can not take notes and still be studying. Taking notes is a very small part of studying, and there's so many ways to study that aren't just taking notes. So to talk to you guys about this first semester of second year study method and note-taking method, I have to tell you about my year one study method. Very quickly, the method was a combination of active recall and spaced repetition that worked great for some subjects, terribly for others. I realized that 2 or 3, maybe even 4 weeks before exams, I would stop using that method and pick up the PowerPoints and the books and just study from those. And so I thought, if that's what I'm doing 2 to 3 weeks before, why not just do that from the very beginning? And that's the study method I adopted for this first semester of second year. Didn't do any active recall. I did keep the spaced repetition, just made the last repetition shorter from 35 days to 20 days. But instead of making questions and all that, I was simply studying the PowerPoints and the slides. Look, honestly, the semester was not an entire catastrophe. It was bad, my method was bad, but it wasn't a complete dumpster fire. I managed to rescue 2 good things from this method and from not taking notes. The first one is that by studying the slides, you're studying exactly what the teachers want you to study and want you to know. Let's face it, a lot of the teachers look at the slides and read 50 to 85% of what's on the slides. They're communicating to you exactly what's on the slide, which is exactly what they want you to know. So by studying that, you're studying what they want you to know, which is eventually what they're going to ask you. The second good point is that compared to my very specific making questions / active recall study method, which is very specific, by going through the entire slide and by paying attention in class, I was getting a more holistic, global, bird's eye view understanding of the class, of the topics, and of different classes put together. It wasn't only me knowing the details by asking myself questions like it had been in first year. This first semester of second year, I actually managed to get a whole broader understanding and sense of what we were learning and how it was related and connected, and how the first class of the semester linked to the last class of the semester, so to speak. But despite there being these 2 good points, there's, I think, at least 4 points that were way less good. Firstly, I fell behind really quickly, because at the end of the day, notes are concise. You're synthesizing and then you're studying a synthesis, which takes less time. Say I have 3 classes a day, which is an average of 80 slides per class. So that's 240 slides, which is a lot of material to cover every single day. It's too much information to cover. I fell really behind. Every time I had to open a PowerPoint presentation that I knew was 80 plus slides, I would get really demotivated. I would really want to procrastinate and sit down and turn it off and open YouTube or anything. And it's hard to know what's high yield and what isn't, because not everything is going to be on the exam. And honestly, that's not even the worst part. I think the worst part, or the part that I struggled with the most, was paying attention in class. Class can be about the most interesting thing in the world, but personally, listening for 2 hours to the teacher go on and on and on and on about the same thing, I couldn't do it. I found myself zoning out and not paying attention, doing stuff on my computer, reading articles, Googling, answering emails, going on Instagram, a bunch of things in class while I was supposed to be paying attention and understanding. If we look at an entire day of classes, which might be 6 hours, might be 8 hours, the first class, which is 2 hours long, fine, okay, doable. I can sit and pay attention. The second class, so my third to fourth hour, bit of a pain, but I could get through it. But after lunch, class from 2 to 4, and then from 4 to 6, it was so difficult to sit and do nothing and look at the teacher and follow them as they pace and just listen and understand. I couldn't do it. And if I couldn't do that, which was supposed to be my main way of understanding what they're saying and getting the knowledge in my brain and understanding it, then my study method was failing and my information capture was failing. And if that's failing, then it's all kind of disintegrating because I'm not getting the whole picture in my brain if I'm not listening to the teacher. Even though I did kind of screw myself over by throwing myself into this deep end of no notes ever, I did learn that it's okay to try and learn and experiment, and it's the only way you'll figure out what works for you. And now I think I figured out what works for me. So far, it's working really well. But I will be talking about that in next week's video, so subscribe, check it out, and I'll see you guys next week.